Mac Power Users, episode 506, iOS accessories. Hello and welcome back to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hello, Mr. Stephen Hackett.
How are you?
I'm excited about this episode because I have a thing about iOS accessories.
I think you have a little bit of an accessory problem, David.
I do.
I've known you a long time, and I feel like every time I see you, you have something, you go into your bag and you pull it out, and look at this thing, and then you attach it to your phone or to your iPad.
Yeah.
And now everyone's going to know that you suffer from this.
I think it was probably pretty evident already, but I'll share some of the details today.
Okay.
It's interesting because, iOS is supposed to be simple, right? You get these devices. In fact, one of the jokes on Mac Power Users has always been my whole iOS troubleshooting matrix, which is only 3 steps. First, you quit the app and then restart the app. And if that doesn't work, then you turn the device off and then you turn it back on. That's the second step. And the third step is you bring it to Apple. Mm-hmm. It's not like on the Mac where you're like, debugging font files or something. iOS is pretty simple in terms of if it works or not. But there's something to be said for taking the self-contained thing and make it better. What's it that John Syracuse says? What's it, the naked robot or something?
Yeah, the naked robotic core.
Yeah, well, I look at the iPhone and the iPad as a naked robotic core, and I do like to improve upon it.
I think it is interesting because the iPhone in particular has gotten so much better over time. So I feel like there's some accessories that maybe used to be more popular and they've changed over time. I have an example of that we'll talk about, but it is interesting because you can kind of use it as a base to make other things happen. And that's it's fun. And of course, it's fun to explore these things. And part of the deal is, and we're going to talk about this too, is that some of these accessories you can buy and have for a really long time. And then other things, if they're really phone specific, like to the form factor or the size, you may be replacing them every time you buy a new phone. So there's some of that too. Like there's always an opportunity if you want to upgrade, if you're that sort of person like we are. So it's kind of a fun ecosystem to play in.
Yeah, it is. And some of the stuff is relatively inexpensive and some of it isn't. But it does improve the experience. And the goal with today's show, we've kind of picked different areas like getting work done with keyboards or taking pictures. But there's different areas of this have different accessory sets. Mm-hmm. And, why not?
So we kind of have this divided into some categories, and I thought we would start with sort of the most universal. I feel like everyone needs something in this category, and this category has to do with power and charging.
Yeah.
You got to do that. That's critical.
It's less important with the latest iPhones with the significant battery increase.
Yeah,
but
I've just been on family vacation. We're actually kind of behind the scenes. We were recording this right before it comes out, which is a little unusual for us because I've been in the woods with my family.
Yeah.
And at no point did I have battery anxiety with my iPhone 11 Pro, including such many times where I had very low or no cell service. And, most of the time, if you have like that 1 bar of 4G, the iPhone is going to spin up its radios and try to stay connected. And that can run the battery down. But honestly, I had no single day when we were hiking and doing these things did I feel like, oh man, my battery is not going to make it. It really impressed me.
Yeah, I agree. I've been really happy with the battery. In fact, yesterday I went to the gym and the gym heart monitor I wear uses the micro USB, the same thing that plugs into my wireless charger for my phone. So last night I had put the gym thing on. I just unplugged it from the wireless charger and plugged into the gym thing to charge it, and I forgot. So I woke up today and I didn't charge it overnight because the wireless charger wasn't plugged in.
Yeah.
I've still got like half a battery. It's crazy.
It's pretty spectacular, and but there are times where we need a little bit more. And so a lot of people look at these power banks, these portable batteries. Anchor is a popular brand. It's the one that I have. And Anchor makes a lot of, in my mind, really good accessories for iOS and other mobile devices all around power and charging. When you're looking at these power banks, you're looking at a few factors, and you kind of have to weigh what factors are important to you. You have capacity measured in milliamp hours. So the one that I put in the show notes that I own is a 20,100 milliamp battery. It will take up to 10 hours to recharge itself, but once it's charged, you can keep an iPhone charged between 6 and 7 times. You can do an iPad Pro maybe once or maybe 1.5 times. It's a bunch of power. But the other factors are weight. This battery is like a weapon. Like you could hit somebody with it and you could do some damage.
It's like the weight of a mag light.
Yeah.
I've got one. You could crack a guy in the head with this thing.
Yeah. I'm willing to make that trade because I only use this battery when I travel. And at that point, like I'm already carrying a bunch of stuff. I'm an overpacker, so I want the most power I can fit in. But the third factor to consider, so you have capacity, you have weight, and I would put in there size. Weight and size are sort of the same thing with these batteries.
Yeah.
But then you have the speed at which it can charge and charges itself. So a lot of these use micro USB, which you mentioned, which I don't love, but it's kind of the standard for this stuff. And this one in particular does 4.8 amps output. So it's not going to necessarily do a real fast charge to an iPhone. Some of these batteries do offer faster charging. Some offer USB-C. This just has USB-A. It's just a matter of figuring out what you want for your needs. Some people may want something that's a lot smaller that would just give them one charge on their iPhone but do it really quickly. So you would look at a different battery with a different set of characteristics. But for me, I want the most power. And at the time, this was about the biggest thing you could buy. I've had this thing for years, and I've been really happy with it.
Yeah, I've got the slightly newer version of that. It also is quite large, but it has USB-C instead of micro USB on it.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, and you can charge into the USB-C. So if you go on the road and like you have your iPad charger, you can charge the battery during the day while you're away with the iPad. And then you can do USB-C direct to the iPad Pro to charge it, but it's also got 2 USB-A ports in it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really nice charger. I also have the half size of this. It's like, I think, 10 or 12,000 milliamp hours. And that's what I think of as the Disneyland battery. We go to Disneyland for a day. I've always got my kids or somebody with me or friends from out of town. They never really think about it. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird. You go to Disneyland and you go to the bathroom, right? Because there's like no plugs in Disneyland. And you'll see somebody like sitting on the sink counter with their phone plugged in.
Oh no.
to the one socket they could find in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, you spent like over, $100 to be here today.
Mm-hmm.
And you're staying in the smelly bathroom to charge your battery. That's just not good.
Buy a battery.
I feel like I need a subscription plan for the smaller size though, because they just disappear on me. My kids take them. My wife takes them. I don't know if I should say that out loud. I don't want to get in trouble. But sometimes they just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have been known to give them away. We had a really close family friend heading off to a foreign exchange program in Paris. And he came over the night before. I'm like, you got a battery, right? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I went upstairs, cut my battery. I said, just take this with you.
Yeah.
And when he got back, he told me that was like the best thing he had on the whole trip. You do need these batteries, even if you do have the super new iPhone. I think it's just helpful to have one along with you. I would pair it. There's a pairing for this with some of those Nomad cables. Nomad makes these great cables that have USB-C, micro USB, and Lightning on the end.
Yeah,
and
I've got one.
There's cheap ones and there's good ones, and the Nomad ones, it's a brand I trust. So I use the Nomad one, and I've got a short one and a long one, but usually I just take the short one with me. So you go to Disneyland, throw the half-size battery and the Nomad cable in your bag, and whoever on the trip runs out of battery or whatever device it is, you can give them a charge. Mm-hmm. Even an Android device. I have this battery has been known to charge Android devices as well.
We're all brothers and sisters on the same planet.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
I would say, too, the portable battery thing, it is and we're coming up, the holidays aren't that far away, and we're going to do a holiday gift guide, but this is one that I have given to family members, just like, like a smaller one. I always get thank yous for that. Sometimes like years later, like, oh, that phone you gave me last Christmas totally saved my bacon. It's just a handy thing to have. So it's one that something I definitely recommend that people check out.
Yeah.
I'm putting just the Anchor portable charger page in the show notes because they have so many different options. I really like their stuff. I think they're a good brand to go to.
Yeah, the reason I buy them is like I know they're reputable, and some of the stuff on Amazon, it's battery. So, batteries can catch on fire if they're not done right. And I've just come to trust Anchor over the years, so I just buy theirs. I know that there are other reputable brands too. And people like those as well. You can talk about those in the forum if you want, but because I have one that I know and trust, that's one I go with. And the other thing Anchor does with all their modern batteries is they have some mechanism on it to see how much charge is in it, which is great. You press a button or something and there's some LED lights. But I just want to know when I leave, is it full or not?
Just for completeness sake, they have a $500 generator. Okay. With 4 USB ports, a regular 110 outlet, 12 volt out. So if you need maximum power, $500 will get it.
We had that thing. I don't know if it made the national news, but in California,
right?
It's wildfire season. October is the worst because we haven't had rain in a long time, and everything is super dry. So and it gets windy. So the power companies have been selectively turning off power in areas where they're worried about power lines starting a fire.
Right.
And everybody's losing their mind. But my house, we got a warning that we might get turned off, but we never did. But between my UPS and my Anchor batteries, I knew I could get by for quite a while. What about the battery cases, where you put the case on that's got the battery built in?
Sure. I had one for my iPhone XS. Again, only using it while I traveled.
Yeah.
The 11 Pro has spectacular battery life. There is not currently a battery case for the new phones, although I think it has been rumored that they would be coming out at some point. And even with the 11 Pro's additional battery life, I would probably pick one up, again, just for days that I travel. I have this funny thing because where I live in Memphis, anywhere I go in the country for work, unless it's Chicago, I have a connecting flight because we just don't have a very busy airport.
Yeah.
And that means days I go to California or the East Coast or something for work, it is very often a 10 or 12 hour day, or longer on flights and airplanes, getting a car, all that stuff. And I don't want to be without my phone during those times. And so if the battery case comes out for the 11 Pro, I'll pick one up just for those instances. What about you? Were you ever a battery case guy?
I was a long time ago and then got tired of it because, you get a new phone and then the battery case doesn't work anymore.
Right.
I did get one, though, for the XS. And the reason was because Daisy and I had the identical phone. And she would have these days at work that were really long sometimes. And I would have travel. So we had this community battery case. And we would just switch it, whoever had an important event and would need it. So I had one for that phone. I don't think I'm going to buy one for this phone, though. Honestly, I'll just bring the charger and the cable. It's just this phone, for a lot of my travel days, it's one flight. And a lot of the flights, I take my phone out of my pocket anyway. I can charge it in the glove box. I just don't think I need it anymore. So I'm probably going to take a pass this time.
There are third-party battery cases. Normally, they don't come out very quickly because there's a lot of work to do to make the phones fit and everything. Again, you want to look at a reputable brand, look at reviews. Don't buy the cheapest thing on Amazon, I would say, when it comes to power stuff. Find something that is from a brand that you recognize, and you should be okay.
In addition to batteries, I think a separate problem that comes up from having all these devices is charging them, even when you have a plug. And while Apple, good on them for increasing the charger size with the new iPhone Pro, but I believe the iPhone 11 non-Pro still comes with a dinky 5.
It does.
Good on them, kind of. but it's also a lot to carry when you travel. And we've been talking on this show for years about these multi-chargers where it uses one plug in the wall and it's got somewhere between 4 and 6 USB or USB-C or whatever ports on the end. I just love these things. I have a whole collection of them at this point because every couple years I get another one. I got one when the USB-C port came out. I got one of those. So I've got them all over the house. I've got them strategically placed.
Yeah, I use one actually behind my nightstand for
me
my
too.
bedstand charger that I'm going to talk about. The one I have, again, is from Anker, and its trick is that it has USB-C power delivery, which is like a sort of a side topic where power delivery over USB-C means it can fast charge an iPad or it can charge a MacBook Pro, kind of in the Apple world.
Yeah.
Not all USB-C ports are USB-C power delivery. So like there's some fine print to read. The Anker one I have has a USB-C power delivery and then 4 USB-A ports. So I have like a USB-C cable usually for my iPad, but I can swap in a USB-C to Lightning cable and fast charge my iPhone, and then 4 of the USB ports. And I usually, Lightning cables and a watch cable. The trick here for me is, though, I have one of these that is set up with the cables like in a half-gallon Ziploc bag in the closet. Yeah. And so when I travel, I get that, and so I don't have to rob cables from somewhere else in the house. This thing's $50. It's not necessarily cheap, and I have all the cables, but I travel enough now where I just want to like pick it up and go, and this thing is like ready to go at a moment's notice.
One to go and one to show. I've got more. I've also got one gaff taped to the bottom of my computer desk, and then I just run some power cables out of it into that little drawer that we talked about when we talked about our setups. And then like I've got one in the travel bag as well, but I also put one downstairs. So when all the teenagers convene at the Sparks house, because teenagers have a rule that their phones can never be charged above 15%. So I have it down there with cables, and they come over to watch a movie, and you'll see like 5 phones plugged into it at once.
They're really handy.
There's a new device that I'm kind of interested in, made by Elevation. They've got a new cable device. It's like one of these travel chargers. It comes with the brick that you plug in, but on the other end is this multi-cable. So it's got all of the cables built in, the charging cables built in.
Oh yeah, look at this.
It's a really clever idea. It's got USB-C too. I'm tempted to get one, but they're like $70. I'm not sure if I can afford it. But I was thinking that would be really nice even for downstairs too, because the problem with the teenagers is then the cables slowly disappear.
Yeah. So this thing has USB-C, micro USB, and then 3 Lightning. Yeah. Which is cool. I would hope that they could change out the cord to say if Lightning goes away and USB-C takes over, which I want, by the way. I want USB-C everywhere. Yeah. But this is cool. In our kitchen, I have one of the, I don't know, it's like a 15 or 18 watt Apple charger, whatever came with the iPads previously. And then I have one of the cables you mentioned earlier that's USB on one end, the other end is micro USB, Lightning, and USB-C. And you swap out the tips. And that's great, but it means I can only charge one thing at a time. But in the kitchen, like anybody could charge anything, which is handy. But this thing looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it does. On that point of Lightning getting replaced, I have a contrary opinion to most of the nerds. I think that Apple is not going to replace Lightning anytime for a long time. Because normal people are going to lose their minds if they have to get new cables for their phone.
Yeah, I see it both ways. I think there are benefits to going to USB-C, but I don't know if it is enough of a benefit to totally turn everything on its head.
As happy as it would make you and me to only have to pack one kind of cable when we travel and only just basically remove Lightning cables from our lives, it would make a lot more people insane. That's my theory. They probably, remember when they went from the 30 pin to Lightning? It was like superior in every way.
Oh, yeah.
And every article on the internet said Apple changed it, so you'll have to buy their cables. They're trying to rip you off.
Yeah. And I think they probably learned some lessons from that. And I think if they don't do it anytime soon, that'll be why.
Something that is of relevance now that wasn't last year for me is portable watch charging. I'm suddenly more aware of my watch battery. Last night we were at an event for my daughter, and my watch got down to 10%. And it's like, that just never happened with the number 4. Granted, I was up at 5, I did a workout, and so I ran it all day. But, I don't like having to think about battery again on the watch.
So do you have something that you are using for that?
No, I don't. I was thinking I may just toss a watch charging cable in the car.
Uh-huh.
I was talking to Zach Hall over at 9 to 5 Mac. Him and I frequently have Apple workout challenges against each other. so
Nice.
so we have.
He's a beast.
Oh yeah, I beat him though. I got real lucky. Anyway, it's a long story. You don't want to hear it. I guessed it on his watch show. So I'll put a link in the show notes. But we had a very heated competition. But but we were talking about it, and he moved his devices up to the, I believe, 6.1 beta. I'm sorry, 13.1 beta. 6.1. Well, that's pretty old. But he says it got better with that. But I don't want to get on the beta train again. I feel like I just got off it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So this may be a temporary thing, but I am definitely more aware of my watch battery now than I have been in the past.
Some battery banks have like a little Apple Watch charging puck built into them.
Yeah.
I don't think Anchor offers anything that does that, but there are brands that do, so that that could be an option as well.
Yeah. I'm going to wait till 6.1. If it's still not to my satisfaction, I'm going to have to figure something out. Because like when I travel, I do want my watch to work all day. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean it's got to. Rounding this out, I want to mention wireless charging.
Sure.
You get a little pad you put on your desk, you charge. I know you've talked about in the past you have one built into your desk, and I use a couple. So I have the Mophie one they just sell in the Apple store. I have one of those on my desk, just kind of in the corner out of the way. But then in my bedroom on my bedstand, I have one by our friends at Studio Neat, the Material Dock. Material Dock comes in a bunch of different form factors. You can have just wireless. I have one that has a wireless pad and a spot for the Apple Watch and just a lightning port, which I often use for my AirPods, drop my AirPods on there. They have a couple different variations. I like wireless charging a lot. It is not as fast as using a cable. So if you're stuck somewhere, like even if I'm at home and say we've been out all day and we're getting ready to go out for the evening and I need to top something up, I'll reach for a cable because I can do it faster. But overnight or just here in my office, it's totally fast enough. And I like that I don't have, a cable that can get dropped behind the desk or behind the nightstand. And the Material Dock kind of all the cables come out together and I'm running them into one of those Anchor multi-chargers we talked about. It's just a nice option. The Material Dock is expensive. Dan and Tom are friends of mine, and I was happy to spend the money to support them and get something that I really like the way it looks. But there are a lot cheaper options out there too if you want some sort of combination thing. But I really like the wireless charging. I know some people aren't comfortable with it or it doesn't work for them for whatever reason. Like if you use a pop socket, it's not necessarily compatible because of the distance it adds. But I've really come to like it over the last few years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I realize it's just removing the little step of plugging in the cord, but that just makes a huge difference for a lot of your contexts. Like they have the ones that are a vertical stand where you can set your phone in so you can see the phone. Mm-hmm. And if you're sitting at a desk all day, I recommend getting one of those and you just rest your phone in there. Notifications come in, you can see them. I have one like that on my nightstand as well. That's the thing that uses the micro USB that I forgot to plug in last night. The one you were referencing that I put on my desk, I'm going to put in the show notes. It's it's not built into my desk. It's just an aftermarket thing you buy. But if you've got one of those holes in your desk for cables, everybody's got that pre-drilled hole in a lot of desktops. And it's usually got like a little plate on top of it where you can route cables through the hole. Well, this is a charger that's made to fit in that hole. So you just drop it in, and then there's a cable coming underneath it that I plug into one of those Anchor chargers. Mm-hmm. And then, so when I'm sitting at my desk, I can just lay my phone on top of that, and it's charging, and I can pick it up. I actually don't like my phone vertical on my desk because I don't want to look at notifications and stuff. I want to focus on what I'm doing on the screen.
Yeah, same.
But but it's great, and they're just everywhere. I have a LED light on my writing desk. It's just like an LED light I bought off Amazon for like $50 that was well reviewed somewhere. But I just need it when I'm writing. Sometimes I need more light. And I was looking at the other day and there's a circle right underneath the switch. And I'm like, huh. So I put my phone on it and it started charging. So these things are everywhere. And I definitely am a fan.
Yeah, it's really handy, and if you're just in a hurry and need to drop something off, it's quick to fix. Just put it on there and you're good.
But if you're behind, like if you need to leave in 30 minutes and your phone needs a real charge, plug it in, but
Yes.
but the amount of times I plug my phone in are maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks.
The most frequent place I plug a phone in is in the car, which we're going to talk about in a little while.
Yeah, me too, but that's kind of in my mind different.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by 1Password, the app and system that I use and trust to keep all of my passwords safe and sound on whatever device I'm on. But for me, it's far more than just passwords, because 1Password can store all sorts of things. It can store serial numbers for applications. So if you're buying an app outside the Mac App Store and it comes with a serial number, just drop it into 1Password and you'll have it next time you need it. Things like bank account information and credit cards and even secure notes. And with this stuff, you can upload files into 1Password. So for instance, I have a secure note that's just named Steven's will, and I have a PDF of my will saved in 1Password. And what's really cool about 1Password is you can set up this system. So if something happens to you, someone else can log into it, like your spouse or significant other or parent or somebody, and they have access to your stuff. Speaking of spouse, I want to talk about 1Password for families. This has totally changed security in the Hackett household. We signed up for it a few years ago when it came out, and my wife and I can share passwords between us. So things like the utility company and the bank and maybe some stuff for the school, that can all be in a shared vault that we both have access to. But then we also have our own personal vaults as well. She doesn't necessarily want all of my passwords for things like my Twitter account or my Gmail account, things like that, cluttering up her 1Password experience. So we can have separate passwords as well. And it's really easy. As our kids get older, I could add them, have a vault just shared with the kids. It's really great to manage this stuff within a household, and really important, more important now than ever. And with 1Password 7.4, it is ready for iOS 13 with things like dark mode, support for the new document system, and David's favorite, voice control.
Yeah, you know what I'd add to that, Stephen, is that the nice thing about the families is it's actually usable to non-nerd family members. Mm-hmm. My wife, on our family account, she's totally into it. I think she tries to sell 1Password to every person she meets because she understands how useful it is, and she can do it, even though she's not super into all the geeky stuff we talk about on Mac Power Users.
That's right. It's same thing here. It's great. Go check it out. Learn more at 1password.com/MPU. And you can sign up for a free 30-day trial there. And when you do sign up, you'll get 20% off. Once again, that's 1password.com/MPU for 20% off. Our thanks to 1Password for their support of the show.
I want to talk about one of my favorite things to do with my iPhone, and that's taking pictures.
Yes.
And I really like gearing up my phone for taking pictures. Mm-hmm. I've gone down several rabbit holes. At one point, I owned a DX1, which was a device that plugged in through the Lightning port. It was a lens system. It was a lens in a little wart thing you plugged on the end of your phone, and it took pictures.
I remember that. You had that at XOXO one year.
Oh yeah, it's great. I loved it. Because it was such an improvement over the native camera system, several years ago. I gave it to a friend that has an older iPhone because I don't think it's really that much of an improvement over modern iPhones.
Yeah, they've caught up in a way.
Yeah, they have. And, but it was great. But I've bought a series of things over the years. I think the beginning point, though, if you want to get into photography with your iPhone, is to consider the camera connection kit.
Yeah, so this is a dongle. There's a Lightning version that supports USB 3 transfer speeds. And so one end is Lightning, the other end is USB. So you can plug in a camera. They also have an SD card reader that you can pick up if you just want to take the SD card out of your camera. But most cameras support this just over USB. I know mine certainly does. Yeah. And it lets you bring photos in from a camera over Lightning right into the Photos app.
Yeah, and you find uses for this even outside of photos. But if you have a camera with an SD card, this is almost a must-have, I think.
Yeah, I've got two Sony cameras, and they both have, an app you can put on your phone, and you set up a wireless network, and you can transfer stuff over. And I'm a reasonably smart guy, but I've never gotten that to work successfully. It's always buggy. It'll start transferring and then fail. Part of it is I shoot in RAW, so I get really big images.
Yes.
And so I just gave up on that. And if I want to bring stuff straight into iOS, I always reach for one of these adapters.
Yeah, with my Sony camera, it's the same thing. I can get it to work, but it just is very slow and it's very tedious to get it going. I mean, the idea behind it was, oh, you could take a picture of their camera and then post it to Instagram. Well, you could if you stopped for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Like it's
It's
exactly.
just, it's just not going to work. But I do want to talk about lens systems because this is a rabbit hole I've gone down over the years with the various iPhones. And I used to buy, I think it was the Olo clips, the ones that would clip on. They had like a thing, but they had to be the exact thickness, and you couldn't use a case, or you had to get the Olo case, and then just like the batteries, as soon as you got a new phone, then all your lenses were obsolete and didn't work anymore. So several years ago, I stumbled into these Moment lenses, and that's a company on the internet. We'll put the link in the show notes. It's showmoment.com is their main website. But they really, I think, have nailed getting good quality lenses and a system that can work for iPhone users. And so they've got a variety of lens sizes. They've got a wide, which is very similar to the new Apple, the iPhone 11 wide lens. They've got a Superfish that's even wider. I mean, it's crazy how wide that thing is. And then they've got a 2X, which is frankly pretty similar to the zoom lens in the current iPhones. But then they've also got a macro and an anamorphic lens. And the anamorphic lens is super interesting. That's one that I keep looking at. A couple times I've put it in my cart, but I've never pulled the trigger on it because I'm too cheap. But the anamorphic lens is like for shooting video. It puts the black bars across the top and bottom, and it like does lens flares on light. If you shoot a lot of video, I think it could be a lot of fun to play with that lens.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is the way you buy these lenses, and you're not stuck with the lens when you change your phone. You don't lose the lens. You buy a case to go with it. And memory serves, it was like $30. And you get the case, and it's got like a proprietary screw placed right over the camera lens in the iPhone. So you just screw these lenses on top of the iPhone lens, and they work great. I went and looked it up right before we started recording the show. Now they're like $20 to get one for the iPhone 11. So for $20, I'll be able to use my Superfish and my macro lenses with my new phone for just $20, and then I can just bring the lenses over. So I think it's a good investment if you want to do these lens systems. And something I've always loved about iPhone photography, in fact, this is a theme through this segment of the show, is I love the idea of having great camera gear in my pocket, without carrying a camera bag. Or like if I have a small pouch, I still have great camera gear. And if you just put one of these cases on your phone and stick a couple of these lenses in your pocket, you've got all these additional options you didn't have before.
It's really cool. And I think they finally figured out their system, again, where you have the case and you have the lenses that are separate. Because I went through several Olo clips over the years and I sort of got burned out on it. I was like, I'm having to replace this every couple of years. But with Moment, you can make an investment that's going to stick around for a long time, which I appreciate.
And I think it's better glass too, honestly. It's just, they take great pictures. When we were in Europe, I was using that Superfish in some of the cathedrals where you walk right up to that stained glass, and then I just screw on the Superfish lens, and I got these amazing pictures with my phone. It was great.
It's super cool. And like you said, you can just keep it in your pocket. Camera gear is bulky and heavy, and you don't want to lug it with you. In fact, on this trip, I didn't even take like one of my full-blown Sony cameras because I didn't want to take the bulk. So it was just the iPhone for me.
But you also need to get that phone on a tripod.
Yeah, I think so. And especially with the night mode, it unlocks longer exposure times.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of tripod options, but I think one of the most important things is how you connect the phone to the tripod itself. And I really recommend the Glyph. Again, it's from Studio Neat. It is this little clever design where you put the phone in it. And like the Moment stuff, it's sort of agnostic to what phone you have because it's spring loaded. So it'll hold basically any size phone recently in a case, out of a case. And then it has threads so you can mount it to a tripod. And they have a little system too with a hand grip and stuff that you can use. But I have put my phone in this and stuck it on big tripods, stuck it on tiny desk tripods. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, and it's got multiple mounting points, and there's a bunch of these different, connect my phone to a tripod things. If you go on Amazon, there are a lot of them. I will endorse the Glyph as well because it's the way it locks. It's got like a ratchet on it. So once you get it to the right width for your phone and you like lock it down, it audibly snaps in place. It's very satisfying.
It is.
It doesn't damage your phone, but your phone is not coming out of there.
Mm-mm.
Whereas some of the ones that are just like the spring loaded without any kind of lock, I always worry you're going to put it on there and it's going to like the phone's going to tumble out into the ocean or something. Yeah, because I've used the Glyph on like boats and things where, if the phone falls out of there, my next step is to go to the Apple Store to get a new phone,
right?
And and so it's a great device, and you can just count on it. One of the things I'd recommend when you get the Glyph, they have an additional package, like you pay a little extra, and they have a wooden handle for it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that wooden handle, so I bought it on a whim. It's same thing. I'm friends with the guys, so I guess you can say we're biased. We're friends with the people that make this stuff, but I'm like, I want to support them, but I also know they make really quality stuff, and so they have this wooden handle with a strap on it, but I use that so much. Like if I want to shoot video in Disneyland, of course Disneyland's going to come up when we talk about photography for me. But the handle fits in my bag. I can screw it on and walk down the street. And I'm going to argue with you later about whether you need a gimbal once you have that set up. So it's great, and that's something I'd recommend. But you also need to attach it to a tripod. And Steven and I have a couple tripods that we like.
Yeah, the one that I use most often, it's super tiny. It's a little desktop tripod by Manfrotto. And it's got a ball and shoulder mount, so you can change the angle. The reason I ended up using this one, and I have like a big expensive Manfrotto tripod. It's not even worth like talking about it. It's like pro equipment. It's not really an iOS accessory. Yeah. I put my iPhone on that too. But this one is useful because you can put your phone almost anywhere. So I've put it on top of a cabinet in my office to do stop motion stuff before, or time lapse stuff. I've used it all sorts of weird places just because it's handy and small, and the Glyph just screws right onto it because that's a universal thread mount deal, so you can basically screw anything into anything. And I think this actually came maybe with my big tripod. It's like $25 on its own, and the legs fold down in a way where it makes a nice handle. So I've also used it just as a handle before, like you mentioned, the Studio Neat wooden one.
I have a couple tripods that I like to use with my phone. The first one is the smallest tripod I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it makes the one that I'm putting in the notes look enormous.
It's like 5 of these could fit in yours. It's made by Joby, the same people make GorillaPod. It's called a micro tripod, and it's about as big as like 2 knuckles on my index finger. I mean, it's so small, but it's really well made, and it unfolds to a small tripod. I think it's got about a 6-inch diameter once you set it down, but it totally holds an iPhone in a Glyph. And you can set it down on anything. Like I often find myself putting it on trash cans, or just anywhere I go and I want to take a picture and just lock the camera down. And the beauty of this thing is it can fit in my pocket with a Glyph and an iPhone. Like I can get in one jeans pocket everything I need for night photography.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. They're expensive. They're like $50. And it's like I have a treasured place I keep it because I spent so much money on it. And I feel like I could lose this stick of gum tripod so easily. But man, I really am happy with this purchase, and I use it all the time.
There's also a whole sort of scene called GorillaPods. That's actually the name brand by a company named Joby, which makes really nice camera stuff.
Yeah.
And you've seen them. It's like a bendy tripod. You can wrap it around a log or, on a staircase or something. I have one of the name brand ones. Again, mine has a ball and shoulder mount, so you can change the angle. You can screw a Glyph onto it. But this is one that I definitely recommend, the name brand, and I thought that already. And then I see, David, in the show notes that you have some regrets about this.
Oh, yeah. We were going on a trip, and I was looking at the GorillaPod was like $30, and then there was a generic one for like $20. And I'm like, oh, I could save $10. I mean, what could be different? Well, I found out, and of course, when I got on the trip, it was a long trip. It was when we went to Europe, and I didn't have time to return it, so I'm stuck with this stupid tripod where the articulating joints got loose after like a week.
Oh no.
So you can't use it for what it was made for. But the worst part of it is the screw where you screw the glyph or the camera on it has like wobble in it. It's not locked into the device. So it's just like I threw it away. I didn't even bring it home. But that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
One other tripod I'd recommend is the Pedco, PEDCO Ultrapod 2. And I've had that one for years, but it's, again, a small tripod, but it has a Velcro strap on it. And it's really great for like Velcroing the tripod to like a gate post or something.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, they're only like $15. They're very cheap.
Yeah, there are a lot of good options out there, and it depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you, we're not even getting into because we don't use them, but there are suction cup mounts, and you can stick an iPhone to the outside of a moving vehicle or on the side of something. There's lots of options out there to mount a phone basically to anything. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, the downside of this micro one is it doesn't like, you can't strap it to a fence post or hang it from a tree branch, but for most of the tripod stuff I do, I don't need to do that. And honestly, right. if I was listening to this and saying, okay, I want to get a tripod for my phone, especially with this new night mode, I would get this micro tripod and one of those glyph holders, and you're good. You're good. And it's like anywhere you go, that fits in your pocket. You go to a family event, you want to set up the phone on a tripod, there's always some flat surface you can use.
All right. I think they've got the tripod mounting issues squared away, but we do need to talk about this gimbal situation. So
yeah. So you have a gimbal. Tell me about it.
I do. So I have the DJI Osmo Mobile 3. And if you're not familiar with a gimbal, basically you put your camera, in this case an iPhone, into it and you balance it, which can be kind of a pain. But then you have a couple of options. You can use it as a steady cam. So as you walk, it kind of self-levels. And the iPhone does all that with its own image stabilization, but a gimbal can even out even more. Some people have said that if you use a gimbal with a phone with image stabilization, you run into issues where like the video is really jittery. I've never seen that, but if you see that, maybe that's what's going on. But the reason I like this one is that it does a lot more than just steady cam stuff. So you can set it up and you can program in, I want you to look in this direction over here to the left, and then over the course of 2 minutes, pan slowly over to the right. And then you shoot a time lapse on the phone, and you get this really cool, like moving time lapse, like you may see on a TV show or something. And that's why I like this, not necessarily for the Steadicam, because I think honestly for most things you could do, you could have a nice handle like the Studio Neat one, and walk smoothly, and it's pretty good. But I like that you can program movements into this. Now, this is $120. I've used it only a few times. I don't regret this purchase, but I'm not sure, like, if I lost it, I would go out and buy another one. I used it for a couple of projects on my YouTube channel last year, and it met my needs for those videos. And now I have it as a tool in my toolbox when I need it. But it's not something that I think you have to rush out and get.
Yeah, I feel I can't really give you grief about it because I also own a DJI Osmo Pocket, which is a gimbal-mounted little camera that fits in your pocket.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better choice if you're looking for something like this, because setting this up with the iPhone can be a little frustrating, getting it balanced and kind of getting it all right where it needs to go. So if I were to start over, I would maybe look at buying the Osmo Pocket if I were going to use it often, but they're also a lot more expensive. So you gotta really weigh in what you're gonna, how often you're going to use it, how you're going to use it, and if there's cheaper ways to get done what you want to get done.
Yeah, but when you think about it, they're more expensive, but they're so much less expensive than it used to be to get Steadicam. It's just crazy, and it fits in your pocket. Once again, a theme. I do think that the software stabilization on the iPhone every year just gets so much better. And I'm starting to question, even if I need this pocket. My daughters and I share it, so I'm probably not allowed to get rid of it. But
they may take it from you.
Yeah, exactly. This episode of the Mac Power Users is sponsored by OmniFocus, the application I use to capture, manage, and complete my tasks and projects One of the things I love about using OmniFocus is the powerful review tools. And it's something I wanted to mention on today's show. With OmniFocus, you can assign a specific review frequency to each project. So for some active projects, I may set the frequency to like once a week. Like if I've got something super active on behalf of a client, or I'm trying to finish a field guide that comes up for review every week. But for other less active projects, it may be 4 or 6 months. Like when I do corporate representation for some companies, and I don't need to check their project every week, but every 4 months they show up. And the beauty of that is you can customize the review frequency for your various projects so you don't get flooded with reviews, but only the ones you really need. It's an ingenious system. And honestly, I don't know why other developers don't try and do it in their task management apps, because this is really super powerful. This system builds an easy way for me to stay on top of my projects that may otherwise fall through the cracks. And the trick is, at least once a week, I take a look at all the projects that are due for review. The way I really do it is, at the end of the day, OmniFocus gives me a flag to tell me, hey, there's a couple projects that are due for review. And because I've got these frequencies set far enough apart, I never get hit with like 100. I only get hit with like 3 or 4. And then I can have the focus and mental attention to properly review a project. It's just, like I said, it's one of my favorite features in the application. So once I take a look at the options and the projects, I'll find things that I can update, revise, or the best part is when I can kill a project. It's like Game of Thrones, but for projects. And every week, something must die, right? So I love having these powerful review tools in my task manager, and it's saved my bacon a lot of times. Over the years, the team at the Omni Group has made this feature even more powerful by propagating it to the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. So you can do it on any device. I go for the iPad. That's where I like to do my reviews. But, maybe you want to do it on your iPhone. Anyway, OmniFocus has long been my weapon of choice for getting my tasks done. Review is just one of the many reasons why I love this application. And if you're using OmniFocus and you're not using Review, stop right now, pause the podcast, check it out, and then start using it. And if you haven't tried OmniFocus, this is one reason that you should try. If you head over to theomnigroup.com, you can download a free trial so you can see what I mean and check it out. They're a great group of people, longtime sponsors of the Mac Power Users, making excellent software. Thanks, OmniFocus, for all of your support.
So we spoke a lot about photography, but its cousin is making movies, making video, and you have some suggestions for people.
Yeah, I got serious because I have a YouTube channel. I say that in air quotes because I only post to it once or twice a month.
You're more frequent than I am.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? But I wanted to get a little better at it. And I do have a fancy camera that I like. All the stuff of my face usually is through the fancy camera. But I wanted to do B-roll and started to get better at this stuff. And I realized, hey, the iPhone video is really good. Maybe I should be using that as like a second camera. So I wanted to go a little deeper on it. A couple things I did. One was, I think I saw this on a YouTube ad. Of course, they know their audience. But there's a thing on Amazon, and it's called the Movie Maker Kit. It's almost, I think, something made for kids. But I'll put a link in the show notes. It's not very expensive, but it's got a little motorized platform that you can mount like a glyph on it. And it's got a track, so you can put the little motor on the track if you want it to go in a straight line. But also you can like angle the wheel so it goes in a semicircle. And it's just a really nice, it's not really nice. It's an inexpensive and useful little device to get nice slow panning shots. Like occasionally Steven gets videos from me of like a pan of my keyboard or something.
Right.
And I just do it with this thing and it's great. It's like, so just imagine putting your phone, like, let's say you're a foodie and you put this thing in your purse or in your bag and you go to a restaurant and you get some really nice food. What's your favorite food, Steven?
Oh, I don't know. I like tacos a lot.
All right. So you get some really good tacos and then you just pull this thing out of your bag. You quickly put your phone on it and you do like one of those pan shots across the plate looking down at your tacos.
Now I'm hungry.
And then you post that to Instagram. You're like an Instagram rock star. But
taco influencer.
I use it like sometimes when I do videos on reviews of products on my YouTube channel. If you see like a little pan shot over the product or something, that's what I do this with. But it's really fun to play with. And since, once again, I have a family where my kids are both into video too. So we all find reasons to use it. And you can buy like these rack mounted rigs for like real cameras that are hundreds of dollars
Yeah.
and or thousands, but this is really inexpensive, and it, like I said, it fits in your bag and it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I have this huge slider that like I don't want to take anywhere because it's massive that I mount my Sony to, but this seems like a great portable, smaller, cheaper option.
Yeah, and this movie maker kit, that device will never carry your Sony camera. It would probably just like tip over.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it could take the weight.
But for a phone that still has a great, video camera built into it, it's just fine. Another thing I've been trying to do with my videos, get better lighting. And I bought a couple Lume Cube, which I bought one of their original things off Kickstarter, but they came out with a new one called the Lume Cube Air. And it's got a built-in magnet, and it's great. So these are little LED lights that fit in your pocket once again. And like if you're going to the theme park or if you're going to the beach, you can pull it out. And if you want, you can have someone on the side hold it. So you've got controllable lighting on your subject. So like when we take pictures of the family when we go out, I may have another family member just hold this light off camera and it gives me all this stuff I can do with it.
That's cool. Yes. Again, I've got a lighting kit, but it's not nearly that flexible or portable. This is really neat.
Yeah, you can get a couple of them, and they've got tripod mounts on them.
Ooh.
So like you can mount it on the Glyph if you want, or like I know these a lot of people use these to mount on their drones because they're so light. You can mount it on a drone. They're great, and it fits in your pocket, and it just gives you an additional light source. Because that front-on light, even with as much as Apple tries to make it better, it's still terrible.
Mm-hmm.
That like nuclear blast light you get when you try and take a picture. Right. So you just take this thing off to the side. I even do it. I'll hold the phone in my left hand, and then I'll just hold my right hand off like 2 or 3 feet, just stretch my arm out, and I'll use that to light a subject, and it takes a good picture. So it's, you can charge it up. It's got a battery built in it, and it fits in my jeans. I think my whole photography rig can fit in my jeans.
I like that you have your priorities straight there.
Yeah, there we go. And then another thing I listed, I have not purchased one of these. I've been asking around, what if I want to get better audio? And everybody seems to think that the Rode Micro is a good one. The thing that I think the iPhone does a pretty good job of capturing audio when you shoot video, but the Rode Micro gives you directional audio. So if you are out and there's a lot of side noise or back noise, this would be good.
Rode makes really good stuff. I have this microphone's much bigger brother, and it does a great job. And I can see, especially if you're filming someplace where there's a lot of background noise, something directional is going to do a better job at getting rid of that than even the iPhone, which has multiple microphones and puts in some noise canceling stuff. I just don't think you can beat a purely directional microphone when it comes to like a bunch of background noise.
Yeah.
So again, using you as an example, if you want to be filmed standing in front of the Millennium Falcon and we'll want to be able to hear you,
this
is a pretty good way of doing it. And what's cool is you can mount all this stuff sort of into a single rig. Like we keep talking about the Glyph. It has multiple points on it that you can screw things into. So you could build like a whole rig, and that probably wouldn't fit in your pocket at that point, but it'd fit in a bag, and you can assemble it and be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, you can really get fairly decent production values out of these devices. I mean, one of the first things Apple did, and they do this every year, but when they released the iPhone 11, they gave it to some directors, and they made some movies with the iPhone.
It's wild. I mean, the first iPhone it couldn't even shoot video, right? Do you remember that wasn't there in the beginning? Yeah. And then it was a huge deal when they added it with a later phone, and they added 1080, and now we shoot 4K front and back cameras. It's spectacular, and it's one of those things that there are a lot of other smartphones that do a really good job at photography, like the Google Pixel, for instance, but its video just can't compete. Apple is just way far ahead.
Yeah, I know this isn't the iPhone 11 show, but one feature that I love so much with the camera on the iPhone 11 Pro is the ability to do the portrait mode with the 1x lens.
It's neat.
Have you tried this?
I have. I like the look a lot better than using the telephoto.
Yeah, I mean, because traditionally portrait mode required you to stand back because it was using the telephoto as a primary lens. Though, but now you can have it use the standard lens as primary, and you don't have to step back because it's the 1x. I think it takes better pictures. And the thing that drives me nuts is every time I open it up, it defaults to 2x. Other than testing it with 2x, I've never shot 2x for this portrait mode. Come on, Apple.
Yeah.
Just leave it. Wherever I had it last time, just leave it.
Or let me set the default. Right.
Or default 1x. Let's just make it, where it should be. Have you ever used the switch on your watch? Did you know you can?
I know that it's there. I have not ever used it.
Yeah, it's worth playing with. I've never used it under fire. I've played with it, but I don't know. The problem with that is, what are you going to be doing? Like looking at your watch to push the button while you're in the picture? How's that going to work? All right, let's get over to the cars.
That sounds good.
Because you've been posting. I want to hear about your car.
Yeah, so this was one of those deals where I was prepping for the show, and I realized that I had not written a blog post that I thought I had written. And then I looked and realized that I had thought I had written it for a year. So I installed a Sony head unit. I drive a Tacoma pickup truck, and it's a little bit older, and the head unit that was in it was really bad. And now it had Bluetooth, and I could hook my phone up to it, but the interface was really bad. It was really slow to do anything. It was a really bad touchscreen, and the truck is old enough where I could put in a CarPlay unit in a pretty straightforward fashion. A lot of modern cars, the radio is not a standard size. It's integrated with the alarm system and the air conditioning and everything else. And the generation Tacoma I have, none of that's true. And so I did a bunch of homework.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend, if you're going to go the route of installing a CarPlay head unit, check out Crutchfield. I'll put a link in the show notes. I don't have any relationship with them, but I have used them over the years for various projects. And you can go in and plug in exactly what car you have, what you want to do, and it will recommend a bunch of parts that they know they all work together. And so all the wiring harnesses I needed, I have a backup camera in the truck that works. I installed a microphone. I have the steering wheel controls all work. Crutchfield showed me everything I needed to buy, which is really great. So I would start there. But I've really come to enjoy CarPlay, and the install wasn't too bad for me. But I've done this before. There's in my blog post on 512 Pixels. There's I chose the most graphic images I had of that day of wiring spewing out of it, everything in my truck.
Spaghetti.
But even if you haven't done it before, you can watch a YouTube video. You can buy some tools. As long as you're methodical, you'll get it done. But you can pay somebody as well. There's no shame in that at all. Take it to a shop and have them do it. But I really like CarPlay. In Tennessee, it is state law that you cannot have your hand on your phone, even at a red light. Of course, we all know we shouldn't do that anyways from a safety perspective. But CarPlay makes that actually really easy because you can see iMessages, you can get directions, control music and podcast. You have Siri there. These photos are so old. This is, I think, the iOS 12 beta maybe showing on this CarPlay screen. But iOS 13, you get calendar and settings as well on the CarPlay unit. And I honestly don't want to drive a car without CarPlay. In fact, this summer, we bought my wife a new minivan, and that was on our list of requirements because she's used it in the truck and really likes it. And I don't want to drive a car without it. And so we ended up buying a minivan that supported CarPlay. And it's been great. And I really think it's a really solid feature of iOS that doesn't get the love that it should.
Yeah, I told a friend I was prepping the show, and he's like, "Oh, I have the ultimate iPhone accessory." He bought a new car, It was just he rage bought a new car because he was so mad at the built-in entertainment system on his old car.
I may be a little extreme, but I get I get the feeling.
I'm sure there were other elements involved, but I'm the kind, whenever people listen to the show and I talk to the significant other, they don't understand why do you buy these computers so often or new iPhone every year or two? I am that person when it comes to cars. I buy a car, I drive it until the wheels fall off. I don't, it's I just don't want to buy a new car. But so I have a 2013 Ford Fusion. And it's got the rockin' Microsoft Ford Sync system in it.
Oh, yeah.
That's my dark secret. I have a Microsoft logo in my car. but I hated it. And it's like I literally got the blue screen of death one day while I was driving down the freeway. I got a BOSOD, and I wanted to take a picture, but I didn't want to get in an accident, so I just, whatever. But a listener 2 or 3 years ago said, "Hey, you got to check this website out. It's called 4D Tech and 4dtech.com, and they make aftermarket units that run CarPlay for cars that have the problems you were talking about, like the Ford Sync system. I mean, it drove the whole car. I mean, that's how you control the air conditioning,
Right.
and everything is tied into this. You can't just go buy a Sony and drop it in,
and slap that thing in, right?
And this was expensive, and the way it worked is they mail you all in. I was at like $1,000 to do this.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It was a lot of money. But then I got thinking, you know what? I'm going to drive this car for another 10 years. Am I going to be miserable for the whole time? And it was like I waited until I had like a bonus come in. And I'm like, okay, this is the gift I'm buying myself. So I bought it. I paid somebody to install it. And then I sent the old one back to them. I got some money back because they can sell the old head unit to, I don't know what they do with it. Maybe they convert it into another one. I don't know. But I've had it running now for 2 or 3 years. It's great, and it just works. And so I've got a cable in the armrest, and I like that because I know that people are saying, well, it should be Bluetooth and connect to without having to plug it in. But the way this works, we have to plug it in, and the phone goes in a place where I can't even see it when I'm driving. And I don't mind. It's great. I mean, it is such a better experience driving this car with CarPlay in it.
Yeah, mine is wired as well, so I have a lightning cable. I was actually able to reuse the USB port in the dash, which I was really excited about. I didn't have to cut any holes in anything. You can do wireless CarPlay, but my thought on that is pretty simple. Anytime I'm in my car, I want to charge my phone.
Yeah.
And now new cars, if you buy something new, a lot of those have wireless charging pads, so that's nice, but mine doesn't, and I wasn't going to add that. And so wired CarPlay made a lot of sense for me because I have a lightning cable. I have it plugs into the dash, and I can plug my phone in. And what's cool about these systems is that it's not locked just to my phone. I think people may not quite understand how CarPlay actually works. It is an extension of your phone. And so your settings on what apps show up, where they are, that's not universal to the car. That is set up on your phone. And so I can drive my truck with CarPlay set up the way I want it. My wife gets in, she plugs in her iPhone 8. It's how she has it set up. My one complaint is those settings don't cross vehicles. So now we have 2 cars with CarPlay, and we bought the van. I had to set up CarPlay the way I wanted it with the icons where I wanted it when I got in her van for the first time. So now they match, Overcast is in the same place and that sort of thing. But once you do that, it just saves it, and it's really sweet. And my Sony actually also supports Android Auto. So my brother-in-law takes my truck for the weekend to move some stuff. He can plug in his Pixel 3 and he can use Android Auto, and it doesn't affect CarPlay in any way or what I'm doing on it. It's really cool because I think your friend, I think, made a funny but good point where the car actually is kind of the ultimate mobile phone accessory because we're in them. At least a lot of people do a lot of driving, and your phone is your primary entertainment and connectivity device. And so it should be front and center when you're in the car.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention it in the iOS 13 show, but the CarPlay is so much better now.
A lot better.
And if you have CarPlay, the power tip is go and hit the customize button and the CarPlay settings, because a lot of folks don't realize you can move the icons. Like if you're always going, let's say you use the Waze map app and it's on the second screen, you can move it to the first screen. So just go in there and take a minute to do it. And for your SO, significant other, whatever apps they use, just do it on their phone for them. I did on my wife's phone because I know what apps she uses. And so when she plugs in, her apps just show up. And that's a nice thing you can do for someone.
Yep. I'll put a couple links to the ye olde knowledge base about some CarPlay stuff. You can go explore.
One other accessory for your iPhone for the car that I would recommend, it's a former sponsor of the show years ago, but I still use it. It's called the Automatic OBD adapter. And somehow they managed to get automatic.com. Good on them. But it's a thing, that little port in your car, it's usually under the steering wheel, where when you take it in, they plug in the diagnostic tool to see what's going on. Like when you have a warning light flash, they can plug in to get the exact code for whatever the diagnostic is on your car. Well, this is an aftermarket device you can buy. They're $100, and you plug it in, and then it has an app that it connects with on the iPhone, and it gives you tons of data on your car. It tells you like how aggressively you brake and accelerate. It can like score you. It also tracks every trip you take. So if you make a living driving around, you have to turn in your mileage. You get exact mileage and routes. It just does a lot, and they continue to improve upon this. I have the Pro, and like I'm looking at it right now, and I can see my wife took the car today, so I can see the route she took to work today. That's kind of creepy, but I know where she went. And then they have a new device I just noticed was prepping for the show. They've even got a newer unit. I don't know even what it does. I didn't have time to figure it out, but I guess it's even better now. But it's great. I mean, you've got that port sitting in there. Why not put data on it?
Yeah, I have used one of these in the past. I don't use one currently. I forget what happened to mine, but it is cool. And some of the stuff it does is offset by like newer cars. So some new cars will do more of this for you. But if you're like me and David or something a little bit older, this can add a lot of functionality to a vehicle that it wouldn't have otherwise.
I'm getting my wife in lots of trouble today. But when we had the first one, we also have one of those brakes, those parking brakes where you kind of reach up with your foot and you push down.
Oh, no. Did you break it off?
She put her foot on the automatic thinking that was the brake and just like hammered it down.
Oh, boy. That makes me feel funny inside.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we need a new one of those because that one is never going to work again.
That one's done. This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by our friends at Linode. With Linode, you can instantly deploy and manage an SSD-based server in the Linode cloud. And you get a server up and running in just seconds with your choice of Linux distro, resources, and even node location. They're always adding new locations, which is really cool. Linode has hundreds of thousands of customers, including me. At Relay FM, we run some internal stuff on Linode. And it's all backed by their incredible 24/7 support team. So if you have any questions, you can get in touch with them. You can send them an email, you can give them a call, you can chat over IRC, whatever suits you best. And they have super useful guides and support documentation. So if you just need to quickly look something up or you don't want to talk to somebody, if you're one of those types, you can just look it up and their documentation will get you on your way. They have a new management panel in beta at cloud.linode.com. This is a completely new management console. It's in a single page. It's built with cool new React.js and their public API. It's all open source, and it's a great way to see what's going on with your Linode servers. Linode has pricing options to suit everyone. Their plans start at 1 gigabyte of RAM for just $5 a month, and they offer high memory plans starting with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And they have a special offer for you. As a listener of the show, you can go to linode.com/MPU and use the promo code MPU2019 to get $20 off any Linode plan. So you're thinking, you've already figured it out. With a 1 gig of RAM plan, that's 4 free months. That's plenty of time to get something up and running. There's a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. So give Linode a try today. That's linode.com/MPU and the promo code MPU2019 to learn more, sign up, and make the most of that $20 credit. Our thanks to Linode for their support of this show and Relay FM.
All right, let's talk about cases. We got this long and we haven't talked about cases. What's your case, Steven?
Well, we spoke a couple weeks ago about my iPhone damage history.
Yeah.
You know, the long trail of broken iPhones in my past. So I'm using the Apple leather case on my iPhone 11 Pro. When I use a case, I use the Apple leather case. I prefer it over the silicone case. I think you've got to kind of see them and try them. You may like the colors of the feel. I like the black leather case. It's simple. I like the leather the way it feels a little bit better than the silicone. And when I use a case, that's the one that I use. And we're talking about iPad keyboards in a second, so I'll hold off what I'm doing on the iPad. But on the phone, Apple leather case wins for me.
Yeah, for the longest time, I was no case guy. Then, like with the iPhone XS, I had the leather case. I bought the blue one. I really don't like how dirty it got over the year. I know it's supposed to look like it's worn, but with the blue, it just looked dirty.
Yeah, my wife has the red leather one on her iPhone 8, which she's had a couple of years now, and the edges look pretty gross at this point, like just really worn down and dark.
So I had the clear one on. I took it off during the show.
Yeah.
Was it last week? I've lost track when we did that. It's so my phone has not gone back in a case since then. I think I'm gonna just largely keep it out of the case. I mean, for when I'm working at home, I don't think it's a problem. However, if I was out with family and I handed it to somebody to take a picture of us, and I was thinking, oh boy,
please don't drop it.
That's when I feel it. That's when I feel it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'll keep this clear one and put that in it when we go out. But
and that's what I do once it's cooler weather, where I'm not wearing shorts all the time. I will use the case if I'm out and about. So if I go to a football game or I'm doing yard work, or I'm on a bike ride, I'll put it in the case. But once it's cooled down significantly, I will use it without a case. Because again, I'm just at home. And yes, I did break an iPhone right here at my desk, but that was just one. All the others broke elsewhere. So I feel like my track record's pretty good.
I feel like cases are not as sexy as they used to be. I mean, I remember the days of Macworld towards the end where like half of the vendors were selling odd and weird cases. I remember they'd sell them that like they were machined aluminum and you had to have an Allen wrench to take it off.
Yeah, I think Apple sucked a lot of the air out of the room. It's like, if you just want a case to protect the back of your phone and the corners, get the Apple case. And if you want something more robust, a brand like OtterBox is probably the way to go.
Yeah, Daisy will only buy OtterBox. She's a fan, and they make a lot of different styles and whatnot. But
they do. My dad is a contractor, and he has done some terrible things with his iPhone 7, like dropping off a house and all sorts of these crazy things. And the OtterBox just takes it and keeps on going. Yeah,
she had for Disney assigned Daisy a separate iPhone. I don't know I hope I don't get her in trouble. But they assigned her an iPhone, and they put them in OtterBoxes, like the good OtterBoxes, when they sign them out. And they were doing a press event, and there were like golf carts full of people, right? They were like flying these golf carts around backstage to get these people to their video shoot. And they hit a bump, and her phone flew out of her hand onto the ground, and the golf cart behind just ran out over twice, boom, boom. No damage at all to the iPhone. Zero damage.
They are incredible products, the OtterBoxes.
I mean, so it landed on the asphalt concrete, bounced, and then got ran over twice, and the phone was fine. It's a good phone for kids. Good case for kids.
It is a great. They have iPad cases that the kids, our kids' iPads are in, because kids will destroy anything.
Steven, pop sockets, yes or no?
Not for me.
Have you ever tried one?
I have. So we had a challenge on Connected maybe about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago, where we all tried pop sockets for a while. Mike Hurley stayed with one. He keeps one on his phone. I think he has one on his Kindle too, actually.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for me. I since I carry the smaller phone, I don't carry the Max. I can get my hands around it pretty easily, and they do interfere with wireless charging. I know some people, like, you get it lined up just perfectly, and like they actually now sell a version where you can pop it off more easily and then wireless charge. But I want to wirelessly charge without thinking about it and without having to like play any games, and so it interfered with how I want to do things. So it is not for me, but I totally understand why people like them.
Yeah, I tried one too, and I just found I never used it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of one on a Kindle is actually a good idea.
Right? I think Gray came up with that, but it's cool. You can go to their website. They have all sorts of artwork. You can make your own. So Mike's, I think, has the Relay logo on it, which is funny.
Nice.
But it's a totally reasonable thing to do if you want to hold a device more easily or prop it up, that sort of thing.
All right, let's move over to iPad for a minute and talk about that. Cases and keyboards, I think they're kind of intermixed.
Yeah, well, they are for most people, I think, or a lot of people, because they just use the iPad Smart Keyboard or Smart Keyboard Folio, which is what I use on my iPad Pro. It's the Apple one. It's got the low travel keyboard in it, and I like it because it's thin. I don't have to charge it, and it works for me.
Yeah, I have that with my iPad 11.9 inch, the smaller one.
Oh, right. You're a multi-pad lifestyle.
Yeah, I know. But I got for the bigger one, I got the Bridge keyboard. And
yeah,
That I mean, I think for the big iPad, it makes a lot of sense because it's superior in almost every way. I mean, the typing experience is better. You know, they've got it does really turn it into kind of a laptop.
Sure.
But when you get an iPad that big, it's kind of like a laptop anyway.
Yeah, I've got a Bridge. They sent me one, and I use it with the 11-inch some, but because I'm on the smaller iPad Pro, like I kind of like that it's thin and light, and I don't want the extra bulk. I use it some, but most of the time I'm just using the Smart Keyboard.
It's a nice keyboard. I think that's the one. If you're not happy with the Apple keyboard case combination, you want something better, I feel like Bridge is probably the one you go to.
Yeah, I think so too. They've made them a long time. They're really robust, and I've been very impressed with the build quality of it. In the past, when I've tried iPad keyboards, they were plasticky or flimsy. The Bridge keyboard is none of those things, and it feels like something Apple would make, which I really use as a level of praise to that product.
Okay, I want to talk about my most recent keyboard acquisition.
Oh boy, I saw this, and I just explain yourself, please. What is this?
Are you? Does this bother you?
It doesn't work for me, but I want to know what it is and does it work and how it works for you.
So back in the Palm days, we're going way back. I used to get on airplanes with a pocket mechanical keyboard. It was like it folded in like 3 pieces. It was very rickety. I don't know how it ever worked, honestly, but it had a Palm dock in it, and you could sit on an airplane, plug your phone in, your Palm Pilot or Palm phone into it, and you could unravel this thing, and you could type on it, which was great for text entry. You know, if you just need to write a letter or work on something. And I just got an itch for that again. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could do that with my iPhone? So I started looking into small foldable keyboards. You know, where has that gone in the last 10 years? And it's got better, of course. And so I found this one, and there's some that are like $150. Microsoft makes one that's really expensive. But I didn't want to spend a lot of money. So I just looked through Amazon. I found this one called the iClever keyboard. It's $33. And I've had it now for a month. It fits in my pocket. It's very flat. It's a Bluetooth keyboard. It kind of has the feel of the Apple keyboards, you know, the case keyboards.
Sure.
But the keys are not fabric covered. The keys are distinct. They stand, you know, they're separate. But they have very small switches and not very good switches in them. But it makes a Bluetooth connection. It gives you iPad controls or iPhone controls. And I mainly use it with my iPhone. And just like occasionally I'll go out for an afternoon and not want to bring the iPad. But I may get stuck. You know, when you have a family, sometimes a trip to have dinner turns into a trip to the mall. You know, I don't want to go to the mall. But if I have this little thing in my bag with my phone, I can write a blog post, you know. And so it's just, it's almost a toy. But it's really nice. And then I got with it one of those little kickstands. I'll have to dig. I'm not even going to bother digging out the link in Amazon. If you look for iPhone kickstand, I got a pack of 10 of them for like $15.
Yes.
They're just, it's a plastic thing that unfolds. And I gave them to my wife and my kids, and I put one in each one of my bags. And then, so with the little kickstand and this little keyboard that fits in your pocket, if I want, I can do some serious typing on my phone.
I had for a long time a little Microsoft Bluetooth keyboard that folded in half like this that I used for similar things, but it died years ago, and I didn't bother replacing it. But this is cool, and you know, a lot of people, if they're stuck with just an iPhone, they don't want to do a lot of typing on the glass for RSI issues or just general comfort, or for me, just speed and accuracy. And so something like this can sort of free you up if you're an iPhone only sort of mode.
Yeah, and like it's $30. You know, it's not a huge investment.
Can't go wrong.
I fully expected for it to not work and me send it back, but it's working fine, you know.
And does it charge micro USB, I guess?
Yeah, I guess. It does.
Yeah, everything small does.
Here it is, micro USB, but I haven't had to recharge it yet. Yeah, I've had it about a month. So.
Yeah, it'll probably last a long time.
But it's a good idea, and there's other vendors out there. This wasn't an exhaustive search. I'm like, oh, that one looks about right.
Yeah,
and the price is about right.
Sure.
And then I look at the reviews weren't terrible, but then you never know on Amazon. The reviews could all be written by the guy who made it. But I ordered it and it was great. It doesn't suck. How's that?
That's good.
Clever. It doesn't suck.
Glowing endorsement.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace. Make your next move with Squarespace. Enter offer code MPU at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase. I love Squarespace. I use it for basically all of my internet stuff, and that's because it lets me easily create a website. And they give you a unique domain. They've got award-winning templates. You can just build a site. I'm a nerd. I like doing nerdy things, but I don't want to nerd out on how to build a website. I'd rather have someone do it for me. And with the way the world is moving so quickly now, I don't have time to keep up with the latest standards. I just let Squarespace take care of it for me. So maybe you want to create an online store or an online portfolio, a blog. Maybe you're getting married or you're going to have a baby and you want to build a website for that. You can do that with Squarespace's all-in-one platform. There's nothing to install, no patches to worry about, no upgrades needed. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Squarespace has got it covered. They have award-winning 24/7 customer support if you need any help. They let you quickly and easily grab a unique domain name and apply it to your new website so you don't have to monkey around with all that stuff. And all of those award-winning templates are beautifully designed for you to show off your ideas and transform in any way you want them to. I set up MacSparky.com because somebody told me they thought my website at MacSparky back before I went on Squarespace may have been compromised because I had a bad plugin. Are you kidding me? A bad plugin? I'm just trying to get my work done here. I don't need to monitor the security of my plugins. So I kind of rage quit all that stuff and signed up for Squarespace. I've never looked back. It's a great service. The website's always up. They take care of me. I do use that 24/7 customer support. If there's any problem I have, I get a nice friendly answer very quickly. And I really am happy with the move over to Squarespace. So when you decide to sign up, use the offer code MPU to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain and to show your support for the Mac Power Users. Once again, that's squarespace.com/MPU and the code MPU to get 10% off your first purchase. We thank Squarespace for their support of the Mac Power Users and all of Relay FM. Squarespace, make your next move, make your next website.
So one thing we have not mentioned yet is the Apple Pencil, which of course got a big redesign last year with the USB-C iPad Pros. And I'm curious, is that something that you use often? And if you do, sort of how? What apps, what has it brought to the iPad for you?
Yeah, I was just thinking, what's the case for the Pencil at this time? If you're going to get an iPad, because most of them have pencil support at this point, whether it's the new pencil or the old pencil. But they, so do you need it or not? I guess, the first use case is if you're an artist and you want to draw on your digital iPad. And there are people that do some amazing work that way. That's not really me, but I still use the pencil. It's, with the iPad Pros now, the pencil magnetically attaches to the side of the iPad, which is very convenient. And I find myself using it because it's there.
I feel the same way. I don't draw with it. And I will use it to navigate some documents sometimes or to sign something. It hasn't been a life changer.
But I use it to manipulate the operating system. I talked earlier in the ad spot about Omni Group, how I do all my reviews on OmniFocus. That involves a lot of detailed tapping and moving, as I'm removing tasks and whatnot. I just find doing that with the pencil easier than doing that with my finger. I mean, for whatever reason. Or maybe even just a little faster, because I'll just sit there with my hand and just, with very small movements, move the pencil tip around the screen. But that's an example of where I use it. I also do, I still think GoodNotes is an amazing application.
It is. Absolutely.
And I do take handwritten notes. I mean, I've got a kind of a strange analog digital mix to my life. And one of the things GoodNotes has in the current beta, which will hopefully ship to everybody soon, is the ability to scan a document, just like, the document scanning applications do. Mm-hmm. So if you handwrite something, you can import into GoodNotes very easily. But then occasionally you do want to write things down. I was at a client meeting the other day and I didn't have my fancy paper with me, but he started describing something that I needed to draw a picture of, a diagram. And I just opened GoodNotes and opened a page, and the pencil is just so useful for that. So for me, I use the pencil every day. not necessarily to make art, but just to kind of get through my day. I find uses for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true for everyone. You could certainly get by. Like if you told me you can only have a pencil or a keyboard for your iPad, I'd have to go with keyboard. I mean, I use the keyboard more, but thankfully I don't have to make that choice. I don't have to cut the baby in half. But I do find use for it. I think what I'd recommend if you're on the fence about this and you're buying a new iPad, I would try it. Apple has, is it a 14-day or 20-day return period now? I forget.
Let's say 14. We'll err on the side of caution.
There we go. I mean, you're going to know in a week whether it's something you use or not.
Oh, yeah.
And no matter which iPad you buy, they've got one for you. With the Pros, it's a better experience and it's a better pencil, frankly. But even the first generation pencil is pretty amazing. So if you don't know, I would try it. And just be cognizant of how much you use it and whether or not, it's something that Apple's going to get back. They don't mind if you return it. They don't ask any questions. It's okay. Just keep the packaging and say, no, this didn't work out for me. But I would not want to part with it. Health gear. We did a whole show on health earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask, what are the iPhone health accessories you're using?
The Withing Smart Scale, something I use very often. They have a bunch of different models and stuff. I'm just going to link to their generic product page. You can go look at them.
Yeah.
Mine is really old, but it still works great. It syncs with their app, and I really like that. The Apple Watch, which we're going to talk about in a second, another big health device for me. But then I also wanted to mention an app that on the surface doesn't seem like it's related to health at all. And we've talked about it before about Due, D-U-E. And it's just a reminders app, but its party trick is that it can basically nag you until you finish something. And so I have a couple of prescriptions I have to take at certain times, and I have them in Due. And if I don't do them, it's going to keep reminding me every 15 minutes until I complete them. I like having that stuff out of my task management system, and Due is a great place for that sort of thing because of that constant reminder. And so for me, as silly as it seems on the surface, that's actually kind of a big deal for me health-wise as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I do the exact same thing with that app.
It's great.
There's a couple of medications. There's one I always forget the morning, so I get busy, and then Due tells me, and man, it tells you.
Yes, it will not stop telling you until you do it. And you can customize all of that. So mine are really aggressive, but you don't have to have them that way. You mentioned earlier that you're using a heart scale or a heart rate monitor.
Yeah.
What are you using there?
Well, it's just with the gym I go to, they give you one.
Okay.
And it connects to their system.
Okay.
And I'm not sold it's very good. Like my Apple Watch heart data, I think, is better than the one that they collect on me. But it doesn't even connect to the phone. So that's kind of a separate thing. It's a shaming device is really what it is.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine just sent me one of these upright go posture monitors. And I'm looking at it right now. I'm holding it. It's a little piece of plastic that you literally stick to your back. And it monitors your posture as you go through the day.
Are you hunching over a bunch? Is it telling you to stand up straight?
Well, yeah, I think that's what it does. And I understand that there's a lot of health benefits to this. I haven't got myself to actually stick it to my body yet.
Yeah.
But now that I've said it out loud on a podcast, I think I'm going to have to do this. So I'm going to report back in on this thing.
Okay.
I'm going to stick to myself.
Yeah, I've seen ads for this around the internet, and I'm curious to see what you think about that. Because posture, standing, sitting, all that stuff, it all adds up.
Well, the friend that sent it to me is a doctor, and she says, "Don't laugh. This is amazing." And so I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to stick this thing to myself as soon as we hang up. Should I do it right now?
I think you should probably wait, just in case it goes poorly.
Yeah, because I'm not even sure where it goes. My forehead, maybe? I don't know.
Definitely where it goes. That's right.
All right. But I do like the idea as a health device. We did a whole show on this, so you can go back and listen to that. But it does help. It does help.
So what about the Apple Watch? We've both mentioned it now. I know we are activity buddies, so I know you're working out and doing these things. Has that changed recently with the Series 5, or is it sort of kind of the same as it always was?
No, I'm a big Apple Watch user, so it's on every day. But I wanted to say, where are you with watch bands?
I wear almost exclusively the regular sports band, not the Velcro one. I'm looking for the names real quick. The Apple Sports, the regular sports band, the sport band, the rubbery one. I don't really care for the sport loop with the fabric. I just don't like the look, and so I basically always wear a sport band. Currently, I'm wearing the gray one that came with my titanium watch.
Yeah.
It comes with its own band. I have a white one, a black one, and then I do have an older one of the Nike Plus ones with all the holes punched in it.
Yeah.
That I like for when I ride my bike. And what I have done, I'll have a link in the show notes to this, there's a company called Road ID, and you can make bracelets or things that go around your ankle with your ID. So if you're running or walking or on a bike ride and something happens, you have some medical information on your body. So like your name, contact information. I have a very serious allergy to a medication that actually kind of shows up in emergency situations, so I cannot have it. So that's on there. And they have, as of a couple years ago, a version of this that slips over the sport band. And so I have that basically permanently slid on my Nike Plus band. So when I go for a bike ride or a run, occasionally when I do that, that is the band that I wear. And it just has the Roid ID on it basically permanently.
So if you get hit by a car, they can see your emergency information.
They know who to call.
No, that's really good. And that's something, we'll put a link to the show notes to that service because it's great. And but I will disagrry with you. I think that the sports loops are great, and they're very adjustable. They absorb sweat, unlike the fluoroelastomer bands do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. But usually when I go to the gym, I use a fluoroelastomer band too, because I just do. You can wash it off. You don't care about it. If your hand gets wet.
It's the sport bands are rock solid.
But I have to admit, I do have an Apple Watch band problem. I've got, maybe I'll put a picture in the newsletter of my little container of all the Apple Watch bands. And we'll put a newsletter link in the show notes again too. But it's crazy, man. Just over the years, I've collected them all, and I've had it since the Series 1, so I've got a bunch of bands that came with the watches. I've got bands. I bought several from Apple, and then I bought a bunch from third parties. Sometimes I've had some vendors send them to me over the years. So I've got 2 or 3 leather bands. I've got a bunch of these, I call them sweatpants bands, the sports loops. It's like sweatpants for your watch.
They do.
But on Amazon, there's vendors that sell them for like $10 that seem just as good as the Apple ones. Well, maybe not as good, but good enough.
Good enough.
And so I'm the guy who changes the watch band to match whatever, shirt I'm wearing that day.
I change them out some. Like I said, I'm wearing the gray one right now. I've got the black one and the white one. I do have a bright orange one. I don't think they sell this color anymore. And I wear that on occasion. But it is fun to change them out. But I don't have any of the stainless steel ones. I used to have one of the original leather classic buckles, but I got rid of it years ago. The sport band, just the rubbery, standard band, it works for me well enough.
Yeah, I got a Nomad leather one years ago, and it has, I think it's supposed to be stainless steel, but the buffing on it almost matches the titanium watch perfectly.
Oh, nice.
And it looks really nice with the titanium watch, so I wear that one quite a bit these days.
Yeah, we're both rocking the titanium now. You got to me.
Yeah, I love that. But yeah, you can get bands pretty cheap on Amazon, and that connector, the way Apple did the connector, I think you're pretty safe with most of them. Don't come to me if you get a bad one. I don't know, but I've bought several off Amazon over the years. The one that I've never done is any of the Steel Link stuff. I'm just not interested in those bands. They're too heavy and scratchy for me.
Yeah, I've got a stainless steel bracelet on one of my mechanical watches, and you can't wear it when you type if you're on a laptop, right? It's gonna scratch your laptop to Kingdom Come. They're nice to look at, but they're heavy, and I don't. The Apple Watch for me, I'm wearing it when I'm working out. The leather the leather bands, the stainless steel bands, I would feel uncomfortable cleaning them as often as I clean the sport band, because you get sweaty. Or if I'm mountain biking, there are times I come out of the woods and my entire Apple Watch is covered in mud, right? And I could just hose it down and dry it off, and it'll be fine, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan. I think those are too heavy, and it's just never really been a look for me, I guess.
You're too cool for that look.
I guess, but I do like switching the bands out. It's kind of fun. Last question. What's the worst accessory you've ever bought for an iPhone or an iPad?
I'm going to take this a few degrees off from the question you asked.
Okay.
I, in 2012, attempted the iPod Nano as a watch thing. And so I will have a blog post from 2012 in the show notes. This was when the iPod Nano was square and all touchscreen. It was a terrible iPod. Like, don't buy one of these. But there were several companies that made watch bands, and Apple even joked that, oh, some people wear it as a watch. And then it kind of happened, and there was a software update for it that added additional watches, like because you could set it basically when you were done with it, it would just basically default to a watch display, like the Apple Watch Always On. Now, the battery life was really bad, of course.
I remember they marketed that.
And I tried it, and it was really bad, and I didn't wear it very long. But there's a blog post of this, how I put it together with something apparently called the Lunatic Blackout was the band I used. That website is no longer up. This is how long ago this was, but I'm ashamed that I did this. But it's on the internet, and it'll be there forever.
Yeah, my dumbest purchase ever for an iOS device was the Logitech.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
Logitech base charging stand. And it's still for sale. I just looked it up. I mean, it's like a piece of metal with a bend in it, and it's got the smart connector on it. You know, the smart connector that was only used for the keyboards. In fact, this is, to my knowledge, the only other accessory ever to use that smart connector. And it charged it ridiculously slow. I think it was almost like wireless charging speed. And it was $100. And I wanted to do a review on it, and then I hated it. And I don't know, man. I don't know what I was thinking. It's like I might as well have lit $100 bill on fire.
It charged really slowly, right? Super slowly. I think Jason ended up reviewing it.
Yes.
Basically threw it under the bus because it was pretty bad. Don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. That was a dumb purchase, but I don't even know where it is now. Maybe I'm using it as a doorstop somewhere. All right. Well, I guess there's a few accessories for the iPad, the iPhone.
Yeah, this has been fun to go through what we use, and there's lots of things out there. So if you have something you really love, be sure to chime in on the forums this week. There'll be a post for this episode. I'd like to see what y'all are using.
Yeah, what works and what doesn't work. What were your horrible mistakes? What were your huge successes? Love to hear that. And I think the Mac Power Users community is pretty well informed on this. But anyway, that is accessories as of 2019. Thank you to our sponsors, 1Password, Omni Group, Linode, and Squarespace. We will see you next week, but I have to go right now and stick something to my body.
Good luck with that.